Alright, everyone, there's some clips going viral there with Louis C.K., Seinfeld, Chris Rock, and I think some other guy, I don't know, talking about, I guess, racial slurs. And Chris Rock, of course, being black, can say certain words that most people in this culture, don't think other people who aren't black should say. I think that's odd. I think it's wildly strange to assume that comedians of all people are going to hold to moral beliefs of that kind. It's like one of the deliberate things you're supposed to do in comedy is to transgress, is to be edgy, be irreverent, and piss people off. You're supposed to do it in a funny way. But you look back, especially at what I would call the modern golden age of comedy, which is sort of the Mad TV and mid Stern era of something. That era of MTV joy with Jackass and all these other wonderful things. We're talking the Beavis and Butthead era. We're talking mid to late '90s through the early to mid 2000s. That golden era of funniness. It's all transgressive. Yes, it's racist, and it's funny because it's racist. It's sexist, and it can be funny for being sexist. It can be, you can say all sorts of crazy things, and the comedian generally is not held to the same standards. It's like a court jester. The reason the court jester's funny is the one person who can insult the king. The king's roaring with laughter. Anyone else says something like that, they get beheaded. The court jester gets an extra leg of turkey or something. It's the same basic facet. You have to have some sort of outlet for views that are considered taboo. It's basically the whole fucking point. Dad jokes and puns and G-rated comedy, okay, that's fine. Yes, telling the innocuous fart joke or something. But that gets old after a while. Really, the only way to be fresh and new is to transgress whatever societal norms happen to exist at the time. So, for instance, you're talking 20 years ago, a moral majority, Bush and Reagan and red, white, blue, and all of these other things. What kind of comedy proliferates? What kind of comedy is especially seen to be edgy and funny and gets more attention than the rest? Specifically, comedy where it's like, fuck the U.S., fuck the government, gay jokes and stuff. Not having a problem with it. Atheism, Wicca, or something like that. Those would be considered funny. They're transgressive. They get people thinking. They get people a little bit upset, hot under the collar. Most of those things nobody gives a fuck about anymore. They're no longer really funny. If you're telling jokes about the troops or something like that, or dumb government jokes, okay, it's a little bit passé. Jokes about the Dixie Chicks or something. Now, though, if you tell jokes and they're racially tinged, they're tinged with what you would call sexism of any brand. Anything that would be considered, transphobic, homophobic, whatever. If you attack the media, right now that's one of the biggest things. I would say jokes at the expense of the legacy media among the most funny, specifically because there are a lot of people in normie culture who think they've been brainwashed into thinking that if you do transgress in that way, that you're attacking the First Amendment or something. That's why it's uproariously funny. So to see a group of comedians, and then like Seinfeld, what's he best known for? Modern comedy? Modern stand-up? Oh, 2018, the Great Seinfeld Tour. No, he's mostly known for shit he did in the 90s and the 2000s, in all honesty. Chris Rock, from that golden age of comedy. He was on Mad TV, I think. If I remember, I think there was one skit he did once with GTA San Andreas, where he sort of like walks along, punches someone, drags them out of the car and steals their money and stuff like that. I thought that was very funny. From that same era of comedy, you can't expect him to be politically correct according to your convention. And here's how comedians die. They apologize and they say, well, I don't find that funny. I'm sorry. I made mistakes in the past when I was trying to make a living by being transgressive. But now I've seen the light. I'm going to be, doing a Kramer double take or something. Bad idea, because the whole point is to be edgy. Yeah. Freedom is always, there are always moral attempts to restrict freedom. It always boils down to censorship, authoritarianism, control. It's always a negative thing for culture. And comedy always wins. What's going to end up happening is the next generation of comedians is going to be even edgier, and they're going to blow these people out of the water, fundamentally. And it's going to be really funny to watch. What's going to happen is that some of the old guard comedians and some of the new ones, they'll get boxed in by politically correct bullshit. And they'll stop telling edgy jokes. And nobody will go to see their shows because they're not telling edgy jokes. They're not funny. They're not willing to swear or say a slur of some sort. So they'll die out. Because what'll happen is people say, well, this is fucking shit. I don't want to watch this. I'd rather, I want to go online and see something that's, actually edgy because it's more funny. And so the old guard dies off, the new ones take control, and eventually, over time, a lot of them, in the next wave of moralism that is inevitable, a lot of those individuals will have the same problem. Eventually, they'll sell out, they'll get comfy. They've made their millions. They stop struggling. They're tired of fighting, and so they say, okay, whatever. I'll listen to whatever Moms Against Something Under the Sun group happens to exist at the time. I'll listen to them. I'll pretend to be reformed, and I will be boring. And then sometimes they get older, they get bitter, and then they go back to being edgy again. It's very, very funny. Comedians probably shouldn't have strongly held socio-political beliefs, because whatever beliefs they have, they might end up becoming part of the establishment, in which case, it's going to be harder to mock the establishment, and then you just seem boring. You've joined the man, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to see sort of how this plays out. People are angry specifically at Louis C.K. here, because he was laughing about it, and he said the N-word, and then Seinfeld says, oh, well, I've never found a context in which it's funny, so I don't say it, and sort of doing the good guy thing, and it's perfect microcosm of what I'm saying. Seinfeld's from the last era of comedy, and he was never 100% edgy anyway. He's part of that sitcom comedy. It's not the same as being roast master at the stand-up convention or something. It's not like Dennis Leary style comedy, if you know what I'm saying, or Artie Lang or something. It's Seinfeld style comedy. And that was Kramer's problem. Kramer ran afoul of people as well. Although with Kramer, it was more he had a fucking mental breakdown because he was being heckled, and it was no longer funny. See, there's the other difference. Chris Rock or Louis C.K. or something using it in this context, they're all laughing. I found it funny. I'm like, I don't see the problem here. If they had, though, gotten into a heated argument and Louis C.K. starts chanting the N-word or something, then it's no longer comedy. It's no longer transgressive. It's called being an asshole. And that's the difference. It's the Kramer test, I suppose you could say. So I thought it was funny, and people's outrage is like 1,000 times more than it should be. They shouldn't be outraged at all. These are fucking comedians. Of course they say weird off-the-wall shit. Have you ever heard of, what's it called, what's that one joke where the whole goal is to make it as dirty and terrible as possible? The Aristocrats. Look that joke up if you want to. It's basically the comedian's joke because, they get so used to saying edgy off-the-wall shit that pretty soon the only thing that can be funny is to be as crazy and hyperbolic as possible. So it's quite an interesting facet of comedy, actually. Not sure exactly the origins of it. That's about all. Peace out.